On April 23, 2018, authorities arrived at a chilling crime scene in Radnor Township. Two women dead, their lives cut short by a meticulously planned act of violence. This case isn't just about love lost, it's about a love triangle where nobody wins. This is the devastating story of Jennair Gerardot and Meredith Chapman. Welcome back to Chilling Fireside Stories, where I tell true crime stories with the utmost care and respect for the victims and bearable for my community. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It truly helps me continue bringing these important stories to you. These cases deserve to be remembered. Now, settle in and let's begin. Jennair Gerardot was a 47-year-old marketing professional known for her dedication and meticulous nature. She had been married to Mark Gerardot for 24 years, and together they had built a life rooted in love and shared dreams. Jennair and Mark's story began in 1986, two teenagers navigating their way into adulthood when fate brought them together. At 18, Mark was shy and reserved, while Jennair was bold, outspoken, and completely fearless. Their first encounter happened at a Taco Bell, where Jennair worked at the time. Mark was immediately drawn to her, not just because of her looks, but because of her confidence. Music played a role in their early years. They both joined a show choir, performing rehearsed routines in matching outfits, but their relationship remained strictly platonic. It wasn't until 4 years later, when they unexpectedly crossed paths again, that everything changed. This time they fell fast and hard. Jennair was the type of person who made an impression, fearless, rebellious, and unafraid to speak her mind. Compared to her, Mark felt like the quiet one, the calm balance in a relationship where opposites didn't just attract, they worked. In fact, she was the one who asked Mark when he was going to ask her out. She made the first move. And in October 1993, they married in a beautiful ceremony, ready to embark on a life together. And while many couples eventually started families, Mark and Jennair chose a different path. No children, just dogs, their loyal companions who became their family. It was a decision that allowed them to focus entirely on each other, filling their days with hiking trips, outdoor adventures, and shared experiences that deepened their bond. For years, their marriage seemed steady and strong. The usual ups and downs, sure, but nothing Mark saw as out of the ordinary. There were arguments, disagreements like any couple, but one thing about Jennair always stood out. She needed the last word, always wanting full control, always the one to take charge. Financial struggles, however, became a constant source of tension, especially after the 2008 economic crash left them scrambling to recover. While Mark's career remained steady, Jennair faced setbacks, eventually losing her job at Cercier Instrumentation, leaving her feeling frustrated and stuck in a rut. For years they worked through their problems, but in 2017, an unexpected opportunity changed everything. Mark was offered a position as creative director at the University of Delaware, a fresh start, a chance to move forward. And the person conducting his interview? None other than Meredith Chapman. Meredith was already established in her career, having built an impressive reputation in both politics and academia. Born January 17, 1985, in Newark, Delaware, she grew up in a loving, well-off household, the youngest of 3 siblings. Her parents ensured she had every opportunity to succeed, and from the start Meredith excelled in academics, leadership, and extracurriculars. Despite her bright exterior, her life wasn't without hardship. Her parents' amicable divorce during middle school was an emotional challenge, but Meredith remained confident, social, and determined. After earning a merit-based scholarship at the University of Delaware, she thrived in media and communications, securing an internship at a Philadelphia radio station and creating a documentary on Joe Biden, which earned a regional Emmy nomination. With a passion for public relations and political strategy, she worked for Congressman Michael Castle before transitioning into education, returning to the University of Delaware as a professor and director of marketing. During this time, she met Luke Chapman, an equally ambitious public servant whose career led him to serve on New York City Council. Together, they seemed to be the perfect match, purchasing a spacious home in Fairfield Crest and focusing on career aspirations instead of starting a family. Their beloved dog Indy became their shared bond. But as their individual successes grew, their marriage quietly deteriorated. Their lives rarely overlapped, their connection faded, and eventually, they coexisted more like housemates than spouses. In 2016, Meredith made a strong bid for state office, but after losing by less than 5%, she pivoted back to academia. By 2017, she needed a creative director, someone to help develop digital marketing strategies. That job posting brought her face-to-face with Mark Gerardot, a man whose arrival would set the stage for a tragic, irreversible fate. She was 15 years younger than Mark, which initially made him hesitant. But after meeting her, those doubts vanished completely. And after their first interview, it was clear that their connection was more than professional. Mark accepted the job, relocating to Delaware, while Jennair remained in South Carolina to handle their house rental. It was supposed to be temporary, but as time passed, the distance between them became more than just physical. Shortly after starting his new role, Mark was contacted by another company in Colorado, offering him a position. He briefly considered it, but as he stood in the airport preparing for the trip, one thought held him back: Meredith. The pull toward her was stronger than any career move, and instead of exploring the opportunity, he flew back to Delaware without hesitation. From that moment on, Mark and Meredith's interactions intensified. The chemistry was undeniable, and when Meredith invited him out for drinks, he didn't resist. That night, away from the constraints of the office, something shifted, and the emotional connection deepened. Mark opened up to her like he hadn't with anyone in years: his father's passing, his struggling marriage, and the weight of his unhappiness. Meredith listened, creating a sense of familiarity, a comfort that drew him in even further. The attraction became impossible to ignore, and by the end of the night, they kissed. A moment of passion, a decision neither could take back. Mark claimed it wasn't planned, that it just happened, but as soon as it was over, guilt washed over him. Because despite everything, he still loved Jennair. But Meredith wasn't single either. She had a husband too. And despite being married for 3 years, Meredith confided in Mark that her relationship with her husband Luke Chapman was falling apart. According to her, they were together for appearances, not love, and she was eager to build something real and lasting with Mark. Meanwhile, Jennair was completely in the dark, focused on preparing their South Carolina home for rental before moving to Delaware to reunite with her husband. But as she worked tirelessly on their plans, Mark was falling deeper into a secret romance, telling Meredith he was in love with her just 1 month into their affair. By January 2018, Jennair had finally joined Mark in Delaware, but the moment she arrived, she knew something was wrong. He was distant, distracted, not himself, and it didn't take long for her to suspect another woman. She confronted him directly. "Is it Meredith?" Mark denied it, insisting Meredith was nothing more than a colleague. But Jennair wasn't convinced. The suspicion consumed her, and soon, she took matters into her own hands, secretly recording his phone conversations to catch him in the act, and she listened in real time as Mark whispered sweet nothings to Meredith, gathering undeniable proof of his infidelity.
Joy, more excitement this fall than I ever did before.
I want to see you again today. I really want to. It's better me too.
So where are you going to be?
Thanks. Love you too. Bye. I'm counting on celebration drinks tomorrow.
Then, on Valentine's Day, Jennair snapped. She confronted Mark, revealing that she had hired a company to retrieve all his text messages, photos, and call records. She had every damning detail of his affair laid bare. Mark was cornered, and with nowhere left to hide, he admitted everything. But he didn't just confess to cheating. He told her the one thing that shattered her completely. He was in love with Meredith. For over 20 years, Jennair had believed she was Mark's forever, and now she wasn't just being betrayed, she was being replaced. Despite the crushing revelation, Mark and Jennair agreed to try marriage counseling. But before their first session, Mark made a shocking discovery: a recording device sewn into the lining of his jacket pocket. Jennair hadn't stopped at phone calls. She was listening to everything, every private conversation, every moment behind closed doors. Even her own conversation with Mark was recorded.
I'm done talking about this any further.
Maybe if you were truthful with me from the very beginning, I wouldn't have had to dig around like this. You don't find me appealing. You don't find me attractive. You don't want me anymore. You don't even like me. You are miserable. She lights your fire. She makes you feel young. You're excited. It's all fresh. You're getting to know each other, and you are in love with her.
I realize that this whole situation has caused you not to be able to get a job. I get that.
You're the coach. Big time. On us, my future, your future, our finances, everything. You screwed the coach because you made an immoral, selfish choice. I can't watch that happen. I can't watch you have it happen.
What does that mean?
We can't be friends. We cannot talk. I can't. It's too painful for me to see you living your life happy. She's living my life.
Mark confronted her, but Jennair wasn't done yet. She had gone even further, contacting the University of Delaware to expose his affair. And if that wasn't enough, she tracked down Meredith's husband Luke and told him everything. The truth was out. Both marriages were in ruins. After contacting the University of Delaware and blowing up their affair, both Mark and Meredith were forced to leave their jobs, choosing to start fresh in Pennsylvania, where Meredith landed a prestigious assistant vice president position at Villanova University. Together, Mark and Meredith planned a new life in Pennsylvania's elite mainline suburbs, a place known for wealth, security, and family-friendly perfection. But while Mark was moving on, Jennair was trapped in a nightmare. She had followed him to Delaware for a fresh start, only to find herself abandoned, discarded, replaced. She had no friends, no support system, just the crushing realization that the life she had built was crumbling around her. And as Mark grew closer to Meredith, Jennair spiraled deeper into desperation. The final days before the divorce were tense. One night, Mark discovered yet another recording device sewn into his jacket pocket. Jennair had promised to stop listening in, but clearly she hadn't. The fight that followed was explosive. In a moment of fury, Mark flipped a coffee table, admitting later that he wasn't proud of the things he said that night. But what shook him the most was Jennair's reaction. She threatened to jump out of a window. It was then that Mark realized her mental state was deteriorating fast, urging her to seek professional help, and Jennair did. She found a psychiatrist, attempted to piece her life back together, and for a brief moment Mark thought she was accepting the inevitable. As the divorce approached, she gave Mark a list of requirements, demanding that he continue spending time with her, going on walks, fancy dinners, acting as though they were still together. To Mark, it seemed like a desperate attempt to cling to what was already lost. He thought they were leaving things on good terms, even believed she was finally coming to terms with their marriage ending. But while he moved forward, Jennair was drowning in rage, jealousy, and heartbreak. She didn't just hate Meredith, she despised her. On April 23, 2018, Meredith Chapman was celebrating a new beginning, her exciting new role at Villanova University, a fresh chapter filled with ambition and possibility. That morning, she took a selfie outside the university, proudly sharing her excitement on Instagram. That night, Mark Gerardot was supposed to meet Jennair for dinner, sitting down at a restaurant to finalize the details of their divorce, but then Jennair's text messages started coming in. First, she claimed she had taken a wrong turn and would be a few minutes late. Then minutes later, she sent another message saying, "I'm not coming, just go home." Followed by a photo, a pile of trash on the street. But the street seemed familiar. That's when it hit him. She was at Meredith's house. Moments later, she sent her final text saying, "You ruined my life. I hope you never find happiness." And then, by Mark. Mark froze. Panic set in. Dropping everything, he raced to Meredith's house, his mind spiraling through worst-case scenarios. When he arrived, Meredith's car was in the driveway, but just down the street, a black Chevrolet sat parked. He didn't think much of it at the time. The lights inside the house were on, and the front door was unlocked. And yet something felt horribly wrong. Stepping inside, he saw them. In the kitchen, sprawled on the floor, in pools of blood, Meredith and Jennair. Both motionless, both gone. Mark screamed, drawing neighbors to the scene. Emergency services arrived quickly, but the horrific truth was already clear. It was too late. At first, investigators considered every possibility, including whether Mark himself was responsible. But soon forensic evidence dismissed that theory entirely. The gun was found beneath Jennair's body, with only her fingerprints on it. This was a murder-suicide. As investigators pieced together the chilling details, it became clear Jennair had been planning this for some time. A neighbor reported seeing her outside Meredith's house before the murder, wearing a trench coat, glasses, possibly even a wig, seemingly staking out the home. Authorities later uncovered evidence proving Jennair had rented a black Cadillac, driving it from Wilmington, Delaware to Radnor, Pennsylvania, where Meredith lived. Surveillance placed her at a nearby gas station at 2:40 p.m., confirming her movements on the day of the crime. Inside the rental car, investigators found binoculars, ammunition, gloves, and even earplugs. The setup was chilling, indicating that she had anticipated the noise of the gunfire. Jennair broke into Meredith's home and hid, waiting for her to return, waiting to end everything. The moment Meredith stepped inside, she was ambushed and shot. And then Jennair texted Mark saying goodbye, before turning the gun on herself. This wasn't a crime of passion, it was a carefully planned execution. Authorities later questioned whether Jennair originally intended to take her own life. Among her belongings, they found a packed wig, a disguise, suggesting that she may have planned to flee. Did she change her mind at the last second? Was this always her endgame? No one would ever know for sure. As police dug deeper, they uncovered disturbing details about Jennair's final months. Her bank records, phone activity, and personal files painted a picture of a woman spiraling into dangerous obsession. In February 2018, she posted on Nextdoor, pleading for help. "I just transferred to Delaware in December for my husband's new job, and he's telling me he wants a divorce. I don't know anyone, and I'm completely clueless about this area. Can someone recommend a reputable divorce attorney?" A month later, she posted again, this time seeking a marriage counselor, someone skilled in infidelity, depression, and accountability. But Jennair wasn't just searching for legal advice, she was actively surveilling Mark. Police discovered that she had sewn multiple listening devices into his jackets, meticulously removing them each night, downloading the recordings and sewing them back in place before morning. She documented every private conversation, transcribing them into 12 notebooks, obsessively analyzing every word exchanged between Mark and Meredith. She opened secret bank accounts, using them to purchase items specifically for stalking. She purchased a lockpicking kit, gaining access to Mark's personal drawers and belongings. She installed computer hacking software, breaking into his private files. Even more disturbingly, she acquired DNA testing equipment, determined to prove his affair on a microscopic level. Her tracking devices, high-tech and expensive, were placed on both Mark's and Meredith's cars. She even named them. Mark's tracker was labeled as Mark Liar and Meredith's, well, I rather not say it. For weeks leading up to the murder, she had access to every move they made, every text exchanged, hundreds of Snapchat messages between them. Then came the final piece. Jennair purchased the gun. 5 weeks before the crime, on March 20th, the weapon that would ultimately end Meredith's life. When investigators spoke with her therapist, they asked the inevitable question, had he seen any signs that she might snap? But according to him, there were no red flags. Jennair had talked about starting over, moving forward, and building a new life in Delaware. But she had no intention of starting over. She was planning Meredith's murder. Surveillance later confirmed that just hours before the shooting, Jennair had gone to a gun range, practicing, preparing, and getting ready. In the aftermath, authorities uncovered a stunning revelation. Meredith had taken out a $500,000 life insurance policy a year and a half earlier. Her listed beneficiary was her ex-husband Luke Chapman. Since the divorce was finalized, the policy hadn't been updated, making Luke an unexpected person of interest. Investigators explored whether he had any indirect involvement, but ultimately that theory was dismissed due to lack of evidence. With no remaining suspects, authorities closed the case. Jennair was the sole perpetrator, and she was no longer alive to face justice. Though Mark was cleared legally, his name was thrust into the spotlight. Public opinion was brutal. Many saw him as the catalyst for the tragedy, blaming his infidelity for Jennair's unraveling. Instead of retreating, Mark stepped forward, openly discussing the events in interviews, talk shows, and media appearances. A year later, he published a memoir called Irreversible, detailing his relationships with both women, the emotional toll of their deaths, and his struggle to process the horror of it all. The book became a bestseller, but opinions were divided. Some accused him of profiting off tragedy, twisting a dark, devastating moment into a personal narrative. He sold everything, packed up, and drove across the country. Now he lives in San Diego, working in a marketing department at a luxury resort collection. Meanwhile, Meredith's family pursued legal action against Luke, filing a lawsuit after he refused to return the life insurance payout. Since Meredith hadn't updated the designation, Luke received the full payout. Her family challenged this in court, arguing that Luke should not have kept the money given the tragic circumstances. Ultimately, the judge ruled in his favor, requiring him to return only 10% of the total amount to her relatives. The court determined that Meredith never intended for her life to end so abruptly, meaning her failure to update the policy was simply oversight, not deliberate intent. After the legal battle ended, Meredith's remains were cremated and her urn was entrusted to her grieving parents. Meanwhile, Jennair Gerardot was laid to rest in her hometown of Fort Wayne, Indiana. The story of Jennair Gerardot and Meredith Chapman is one of deep heartbreak tragedy, but more than anything, it's a reminder of how dangerous it can be when we lose ourselves in pain that we don't share, and in people who are no longer meant to stay. If someone is ready to walk out of your life, let them go. No matter how much it hurts in the moment, clinging to someone who no longer chooses you will never bring peace. Life is too beautiful, too vast, and too full of second chances to allow one chapter to destroy the entire story. No person is ever worth ending your own life over, and no betrayal is worth taking another's. There is always another day, another sunrise, and a better version of yourself waiting just on the other side of pain. So if you're hurting, speak up. If you're lost, reach out. Thank you for watching today's tragic case. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your perspectives. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more cases that uncover the darkest corners of human nature. Until next video, stay safe and look after your loved ones.